We're live.
Assalamu alaikum and Ramadan Mubarak. I am Rashida James Sadia, a cultural educator and one of the editors at Sapelo Square. Today, May 19th, is the 95th birthday of Malcom X, but it's also the 5th anniversary of Sapelo Square. Sapelo was founded by a group of intellectuals, creatives, and activists who were committed to crafting a digital destination for Black Muslims in the United States. Our very first post was about Malcolm, so in deciding to celebrate this 5th year, it seemed fitting to do that by honoring the legacy of Malcolm X, as our work is centered and inspired by his life and his efforts to move us forward. So today's event, we're going to highlight conversations and artists who embody Malcolm's commitment to human rights, social justice, and Black liberation. This event is also a kickoff to a year-long celebration that we're calling Black Legacies and Black Futures. So thank you for being here, and thank you for joining us in celebration of who we have been and who we will become. Over to you, Adisa.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Yeah, this is about Malcolm. This is about celebrating Malcolm. And I think it's very hard to be Black in America, especially if you've been alive in the last 50, 60 years and not know how important his work and his messages have been at different times in our journey here. Here at Sapelo Square, we are grateful to those who have supported this work over the years, individual donors and supporters like Haroon and Ambareen, Najim, Salima, Abdul Ghaffar, and the Atlanta Giving Circle, institutions like the Muslim Center of Detroit, and foundations like Margari Casey Foundation and Proteus, as well as the Pillars Fund. So, you know, we're very grateful for all of you for helping us make this happen. This is a fantastic day. And it's funny because when I was younger, I always, even before I was Muslim, I celebrated Malcolm's birthday in my own way, you know, because his birthday is a few days after my father. So, you know, the two greatest Black men in my life were my father and Malcolm X, you know. And so I think a lot of us, you know, we feel close to Malcolm, you know, personally, because of the pivots that is brought to our lives. And so it's important that we do things like this as Black Muslims and Muslims in general to remember the power and the strength of his legacy. I'm actually not remembering what we're supposed to do right now. My head is I'm a little panicked. Lightweight. Rashida, what are we going to do at this point?
We want to move into doing opening dua in honor of Malcolm. So you'll be introducing that.
I don't have that paperwork in front of me. Is that Ismail?
Yes.
Am I right? Yes. All right.
You got it.
We have Ismail. Assalamu alaikum, brother. How are you?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Alhamdulillah, I'm good. How are you?
Alhamdulillah.
Pretty good.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate you immensely. So Ismail calligraphist Saeed completed his memorization of the Quran at the age of 15 in Trinidad. That's unbelievable. That is amazing. Since then, he has worked with adults and youth as a part-time imam in NYC at the Muslim Center of Manhattan, has been blessed to recite the Quran at Ramadan for 18 plus years with the congregations with hundreds of worshipers. He has also been blessed to lead prayers in many countries. Most notably, he led prayer in Jerusalem at Al-Aqsa Mosque in January of 2020. Ismail is also a visual curator and storyteller based in NYC and focused on exploring and sharing culture shifting, compelling narratives via the medium of photography/visual storytelling. Ismail's goal is to expand the idea of Islam in America, particularly among the youth and in Black communities. And so with that, brother, I'll just pass the mic.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. In the name of Allah, the Lord of mercy, the giver of mercy. Praise belongs to God, Lord of all the worlds, the Lord of mercy, the giver of mercy, Master of the day of judgment. It is you we worship, and it is you we seek for help. Guide us to the straight path, the path of those you have blessed, those who incur no anger and who have not gone astray. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولا تحسبن الذين قتلوا في سبيل الله أمواتا بل أحياء عند ربهم يرزقون فرحين بما آتاهم الله من فضله ويستبشرون بالذين لم يلحقوا بهم من خلفهم ألا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون يستبشرون بنعمة من الله وفضل وأن الله لا يضيع أجر المؤمنين. Do not think of those who have been killed in Allah's way as dead. They are alive with their Lord, well provided for, happy with what Allah has given them of His favor, rejoicing that for those they have left behind who have yet to join them, there is no fear, nor will they grieve, rejoicing in God's blessing and favor, and that God will not let the reward of the believers be lost. صدق الله العظيم.
MashaAllah, thank you so much, Brother Ismail. So if we were to retrace Malcolm's life, at every point we would rediscover how he wanted more for us, how he fought desperately on our behalf, and how he wanted better for us in this world. And so I want to read a poem that's inspired by Malcolm's work, but more importantly, inspired by how deeply he loved his people. This piece is called Juma in Brooklyn. Dear believers, my mother used to say that a bridge may carry you forward, but the map you need is buried in the ocean. Today, I ask you to make your way towards the water in hopes that you find direction by remembering those who came before you, those who used their last breath to pray on your behalf. When you get there, you will discover that some call the Atlantic Ocean a body of water, while also forgetting to mention that it is also a cemetery. There are Muslims there, and I want to know, when was the last time you prayed for your spiritual ancestors? Today, I'm asking you to give more than prayer, that you use your hands to right the wrong of history. I want you to know that the ocean is not only a body of water, but a lost continent, a birthmark in search of its people, a persistent prayer, desperately trying to make its way to you. I know what you're thinking. How do you pray for something that ain't dead but breathing under your skin? If history has made you afraid of the ocean, how can you ever go back and search for what was lost? As life would have it, there are more questions than answers. Still, I stand before you, asking Allah to make good use of my tongue. I am here to remind you that no matter the hour, you can always go back. Return to the water, find your map, Hold it up against your heart like an inheritance that fell from heaven. Hold it up like a piece, a treasure that has been missing that you've needed so desperately. Let that map remind you that your origin is not pain and your beauty is one that no language can define. I see you on the front lines, standing against injustice, demanding that somebody honor your humanity. Here I am, asking you to travel back through history when your soul is tired and the ache of it all is heavy. Lord knows I'm also tired. Tired of a world that knows more violence than peace. Tired of barely living, yet still praying for another day. Last year, I remembered my mother's words, and I made my way to the ocean. I stood at the water so long that wings started to grow from my back. I want you to know, I could have flown away from here, but I came back to get you, back to pray in front of that ocean with your body next to mine. What good is freedom if I can't share it with you? Brother Adisa, let's call up our next artist.
That was beautiful, by the way. Right now, we're about to bring up Maimouna Youssef. She is a Grammy-nominated singer, MC, songwriter, activist, and acclaimed hip-hop artist. Maimouna, aka Mumu Fresh, has been called a quadruple threat by the Roots Black Thought and groundbreaking by Oscar-winning artist Common. She is currently a Sacred Cipher creative on Iman's artist roster. Her artistry draws on her rich activist history and Afro-Native roots and has captivated audiences around the globe. In 2019, Maimouna performed her soul-stirring song, Say My Name, at BET's Black Girls Rock. And so now I give to you, Maimouna Youssef.
Thank you all. Assalamu alaikum. In the name of Allah, in the spirit of Brother Malcolm. طلع البدر علينا من ثنيات الوطن وجب الشكر علينا مدى ليدا طلع البدر علينا من ثنيات الوداع وجب الشكر علينا متى ليدا طلع البدر علينا من ثنيات الوداع وجب الشكر علينا متى ليدا طلع البدر علينا من ثنيات الوداع وجب الشكر علينا متى ليدا طلع البدر علينا من ثنيات الوداع وجب الشكر علينا متى ليدا شرع البدر This next piece I want to share with you is a song I call Inkpata, but the true Inkpata really, it comes from the American Indian Wars, and it tells the story of the women who waved their shawls at the top of the mountain waiting for their husbands to come home from war. And if they don't return, they wave their shawls until they became one with the wind. And it's a story of our martyrs, and also how our legacy, our people, our culture lives on, you know, through the stories, through the songs, and no martyr is ever dead. You know, energy just renews and recycles and becomes the next generation. Impata nawache chichoze maya echekuena. Impata nawache maya echekuena. Impata nawache chichoze maya echekuena. Impata nawache chichoze maya echekuena. Impata nawache chichoze maya echekuena. I am the daughter of freedom fighters and farmers and bootleggers and number runners, copper color like clay swag who live in Indian summers. Blooded by oracles and seers and water pourers and healers. Once warriors, now killers and drug dealers. Black Mississippi, Choctaw Creek. But raised in Baltimore, so my vernacular's from the streets. We move carefully. My pack of wolves, they care for me prayerfully. You'll only lose a limb fooling around with them. We are the product of a gypsy and a kingpin. I exist somewhere between Egypt and Sing Sing, born to be a revolutionary since a wee thing. Rebellion is the memory of the memories I was drinking. I am the product of prayers and potions and heartbreak and devotion. I come from gorgeous women who cut and shoot and don't even say sorry later. Short-tempered and easily provoked. We possess spirits, conjure worlds, see the future, clutch our pearls. Stay hella woke. See, I was born to bring a little more light into the world. And that's why you see so much fight in your girl. Because Allah's work is gangster. And I got so much more to be thankful. I am Mississippi fresh, clay, dirt bones, I shade. Tobacco filled prayers, sweet grass and peyote. I survived the trail of tears and slavery. This here's what you call unmatched bravery. And if you want this blessing on your stage, it ain't all about the money, but baby, you're gonna have to pay me. Say we call it reparations. I learned to sing, not in school, but in ways you may not understand. Singing ain't about songs, it's about sound and the laying on of hands. I watched my grandmother pull pain from the aching bodies of sobbing grown men with a sound that started in her pit and escaped her lips and made them whole again. We blacken. This red and black blood, it runs so deep. Ooh, this red and black blood, it runs so deep. This ceremony, this sacrifice is nothing you can even teach. Unless you crawl back into the healing love. Black womb, to rebirth yourself brand new. And learn that we are just spiritual beings. Having this here human experience. And nothing else is even true. We are just spiritual beings having a human experience. And nothing else is even true. But if you just wait in the water, wait in the water, children. Oh. God gonna trouble, don't you know God's gonna trouble, Thank you all. Assalamu alaikum. Unless you want me to sing a little more in the background.
He said 5:37. Peace. Okay, so we are in the midst of So I'm like, we are having some technical difficulties. We're about to run a video about Malcolm X as a Muslim that you will see shortly. And it's interesting because one of the things that I think we're also lucky to have is any footage of Malcolm. You know, it's very interesting when you see Malcolm, everything from his posture, the wisdom that he brings, the confidence in his eyes when he's speaking with people who disagree with him, but that confidence is not laced with hatred or anger. You know, his smile. You know, when you look at his smile was magic, man. His smile was magic, and it's very powerful to get to experience him in different ways. You know, when I was working on trying to become a public speaker, he was the first person I studied. He was the first person I studied. And this was an era before YouTube. So you had to go and actually find somebody. You know, it was a big deal to know somebody that had Malcolm X audio or video back in the day. You know, will you share some of your memories of Malcolm, either seeing footage or listening to records?
I like that you brought up this idea of the footage we have, because I think it's really interesting, especially if we look at the little snippet of his speech in the 60s where he blatantly states, "Who taught you to hate yourself?" It outlines all the systems, right? And all the things that are preventing us from being our true, authentic, beautiful Black selves. Just this huge time difference, right, between then and now, but how his words still remain true, how these are still questions that we're talking about. And so it's a very interesting time capsule that allows us not only to go back, but to sort of measure what's changed and what still remains, right? What we still have work to do on.
Yep. Okay, I believe this video is ready to go.
Or not. Or not.
You know what I'm saying?
It's not ready.
It's all new technologies as we navigate this pandemic. You know what I'm saying? So we appreciate your patience.
Let's travel back. So I want to thank Maimouna for her performance. She is a gift. Her creativity is a gift.
So beautiful. The soul in it, right? I think it's interesting. I think it's so interesting the response that you feel when a singer with soul is, you know, sharing their spirit with you is very powerful.
But also like her decision to intentionally use her art as a form of healing and activism. You know, and part of this event has been us partnering with Iman to amplify Muslim artists, in this case, Black Muslim artists, and not as entertainment, which we tend to do in the Muslim community, right? So not as ornaments, but really acknowledging that artists are teachers and healers and activists and community workers, right? And artists have always been a part of the movement. And so we're really grateful to partner with Iman, but we're also grateful for them being intentional about lifting up creativity, lifting up artists as people who are capable of transforming space, time, and the world.
No, absolutely. It's really important. And it's also interesting when you look at Malcolm's journey in the hearts and minds of Black America, like the role that hip hop played in such a massive wave. I mean, it's hard to explain to young people now what his impact was like in 1988. It's hard to share with people what it was like when you went outside and like everybody had an X hat or a shirt or a, you know what I mean? And you were considered, or medallion, African medallions, like, and it was like, yo, like if you didn't know who he was, know something of his work, it was very hard to be respected. You know, it was almost like you might not be a total human being if you didn't know who Malcolm X was. You know, I was lucky because my father, even though I grew up in a even though I grew up in a Christian household, my father had Message to the Grassroots, and he had Ballads or Bullets on as records. And so he would play them for me as young as 9 years old, you know, and
that's powerful.
those records
A lot of
had
people
here we go.
was becoming an integrationist, which was not true. He had gone to Mecca and he had merely written about what he saw, and people reported it as if, you know, he had gone there and planted these people there. So this was an observation on his part, and he was not in the least becoming an integrationist. His role was forever the fight for Black freedom. He wanted to raise the level of the struggle from one of civil rights to one of human rights, and he felt that civil rights confined our struggle or our fight for freedom to the borders of the United States. And if we internationalized our struggle, if we got allies, and everyone realized the importance of getting allies, even this country in the Revolutionary War, they sent people all over forming correspondence committee to explain their plight to the world and trying to get allies. And I think the French and the British and Spain joined this country in helping her win her independence. And just like they needed allies, you know, the Black people needed allies. And I think this was one of the reasons for his trips.
I think a lot of people are confused by the new Arabic name, El Hajj Malik El Shabazz. I've always had the name on my passport, Malik El Shabazz. I only used it in the Muslim world. Well, Hajj is a title that is given to any Muslim who makes the pilgrimage to Mecca during the official Hajj season. Well, will you now use Shabazz and drop X? I'll probably continue to use Malcolm X and I'll probably use it as long as the situation that produced it exists. You don't feel that Shabazz takes the place of X? My going to Mecca and going into the Muslim world, into the African world, and being recognized and accepted as a Muslim and as a brother may solve the problem for me personally. But I personally feel that my personal problem is never solved as long as the problem is not solved for all of our people in this country. So I remain Malcolm X as long as there is a need to protest and struggle and fight against the injustices that our people are involved in this country.
Are you prepared to go into the United Nations at this point and ask that charges be brought against the United States for its treatment of American Negroes?
Oh, yes. Please. Right in my camera. The audience will have to be quiet.
Yeah, that was beautiful, you know, and like you see like that smile, you see the sincerity that he had, you know, in making sure that people respected his deed and making sure that people understood what they saw as big changes, right, from X to Shabazz, etc., what it meant for him as a Muslim. And it's also important that we want to note that the video had images from several different people, Dar al Salam collection, the Majida Abdul Karim archive, Umi's archive, Aisha Ibrahim, Aida Aliyah Rashid, and the Rasul Media will all had a hand in that, and so we're grateful to them for.
So those images are going to come later in a video that Sapelo has crafted, and so we want to give folks a shout out later. So what was just shared were just sort of archives for us to sort of amplify Malcolm's journey. That was a beautiful clip, and I also think it's really connected to him being very intentional about his name and how that was sort of connected to his spiritual journey. and being adamant about reclaiming that and saving that for himself. So I'm really glad that we were able to share that. So I think we want to segue into our first conversation, Adisa.
Yeah, and so this is a conversation with Dr. Suad Abdul Kabir and Zaheer Ali talking about Malcolm X as a Muslim, which is really important because with all the quotes and everything that you can pull from Malcolm X and all the different aspects of who he was, we can get excited about that, and we should be excited about that. But understanding him as a Muslim is important, and that's why this conversation is here. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. Assalamu. Thank you so much, Adisa and Rashida. And assalamu alaikum, Zaheer. Oh, I see you got a Malcolm background too. All right.
I mean, you know, I don't have like the, y'all don't want to know. It's like a messy background, but it's all good in the spirit of the yeah.
So thanks. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Black Legacies, Black Futures in honor of Malcolm X. I am Dr. Saad, senior editor at Sapelo, and we're joined today with our dear brother, OG squad member, Zaheer Ali. For nearly 2 decades, oral historian Zaheer Ali has listened to, amplified, and preserved the stories of marginalized voices. His work has informed the Pulitzer Prize-winning biography of Malcolm X. He spawned a viral video on the Bean Pie, and also he has inspired a critically acclaimed art collection, Installation, and he is currently senior editor at the Pillars Fund. And so we invited Zaheer, who is, Zaheer is one of these people that if I need to know anything about anything, I ask Zaheer. Okay.
You're too kind.
And particularly around Malcolm X. And so one of the things, so the first question I have for you is that, as Rashida mentioned, when we first started Sapelo, one of the first things we did these posts on Malcolm. And one of the first posts was this exhibition called Refracting Light, where we asked Black Muslims to sort of reflect on Malcolm in audio and then send us their favorite picture of him. And so one of those folks who's an entrepreneur and artist, Camilla Schwabe, she sent this really creative rendition, right, of her photo of Malcolm. Malcolm, he's praying. He's making salah. I think we're going to show the photo now just so people have a reference to it. And so I feel like this photo is really important. It's really iconic, but not typical of the kind of visuals we see, right, about Malcolm. And so I was wondering if you might tell us a bit about this image itself and maybe why it's not used as often.
Yeah. So this is a really interesting image. I felt the same way when I first saw this picture, because it's so unusual. This is a picture, for people who aren't familiar, of Malcolm in the standing posture of Salat. Salat as Muslims around the world of the global super tradition of Islam understand it to be. And the reason why this is so important is that for many years, scholars have wondered at what point does Malcolm engage Islam as many of us kind of are familiar with it? And this photograph, I believe, from my research, is dated to 1963. It could be late 63, it could be early 64. The photograph, I think just thinking about the photograph, this is not a, kind of candid documentary shot. It's clear that this is not like somebody set their cell phone up to take a self-timed selfie. Malcolm has a photographer standing in front of him to take this photograph, which says something about the intentionality of what Malcolm had in mind in ensuring that this particular kind of photograph would be taken, which tells us that he really wanted people to see him in this prayer posture. And this is really important for when we are trying to understand Malcolm as a Muslim. And this is a question or an issue that I think is something for us to really be clear about in centering Malcolm in the context of Islam and Islam in America. But I want to go even further and say centering Malcolm as a Black Muslim. not just as a Muslim. And I know that people are going to be like, why you always got to bring in the black stuff? I know none of the Sapelo family don't feel that way, but I think it's important for us when we look at this picture. So this is, if this picture is in 1963, then he's still in the Nation of Islam, right? Like that raises a lot of questions about how people have understood the Nation of Islam and its relationship to, you know, other traditions or practices within Islam. And so, you know, for me, Malcolm was always a Muslim, right? You know, I proceed from the Quranic verse in chapter 23, the believers, that says, you know, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Then we made the sperm into a cloud of congealed blood. Then of that cloud, we made a fetus. Then we made out of that lump bones and clothed the bones with flesh. Then we developed out of it another creature. So blessed be Allah, the best to create. And I always connect this with Malcolm's own words in the autobiography of Malcolm X. My whole life has been a chronology of changes, right? So who would but who would look at a clot and say it's not Muslim? Who would look at a fetus and say it's not Muslim? Who are we to look at any individual in their evolutionary development, in their evolution of chronological changes, and say and freeze them at any one point in time and say that is not Muslim? Because we are not the director, we are not the sustainer, we are not the nourisher, we are not the one that brings people into stage after stage of development. That is Allah and Allah alone. So I always proceed from that point. But even if we want to deal with historically, Malcolm, you know, even while he was in prison, he encountered the first person to visit him who was Muslim was this man named Abdul Hamid, who was an Ahmadiyya Muslim in the Boston area. And in 1949, Malcolm was writing poetry that had lines like music without the musician is like life without Allah, right? Wow. And that poem was quoted by Malcolm Jarvis, who was his, you know, I don't want to say cellmate, but who was also in prison with him. Right. And they sent that letter to Abdul Hamid. So Malcolm in 1949 was already trying to make sense of the relationship between creation and creator, right? We know in 1950, after Malcolm encountered the teachings of the Nation of Islam, it began his prison activism for religious rights for incarcerated people. In 1950, the Boston Herald and the Springfield Union had articles about this with headlines like local criminals in prison claim Muslim faith now. They seek, you know, they're growing beards. They seek cells that face Mecca. They want an altered diet that has no pork. So, you know, I think that a lot of times we want to like demarcate these parts in Malcolm's life. Right. Yeah. It's just like, this is, and it's usually around the Malcolm's Hajj, right? So for some people, Malcolm isn't Muslim until 1964, which is like mind-blowing to me, right? Because if that's what you want to do, you have cut yourself off from a whole decade plus of deep activism.
And why is that though? Like, so why, so okay, so you're saying, so you're making this point, right? That sort of Malcolm as a Muslim. And so we have this picture when he's still a Nation of Islam, right? And this sort of unorthodox, right? Sort of Muslim practice, right? He's still, and he's making salah in a very orthodox way, right? And so that troubles some of that history. But why is it, do you think, that, so he makes Hajj and then all of a sudden, like now he's a Muslim?
Because I think people treat his letter from Hajj like the I Have a Dream speech of Martin King as a kind of, you know, get out of jail free card for white people in America, as though he is talking about, and you know, and Malcolm, in fact, the video clip that y'all played earlier, he's like, that was my individual experience, but I'm not stupid to think that my individual experience disconnects me from the linked fate of Black people in America under systemic oppression, right? And so his letter, even if you read his letter with all of its like poetry, you see that he puts like white in quotes, and he talks about removing the whiteness of their minds, of their attitudes, of their beliefs. So he still sees something problematic in whiteness, right? He is understanding that whiteness as a socially constructed identity is deeply, deeply problematic. And is not really compatible with Islam, right? So if we really want to dig into that letter from Hajj, we are looking at a letter that is asking white people, especially, to engage in what some like left progressives talk about as race treason, right? Like you have to betray the imperatives of whiteness in America, in order to be part of a human family, right? Like it's the whiteness in America does not, it inhibits participation in human family. I'm not saying white people, let me be very clear. I'm using the language of white in quotes as Malcolm used it, that is, and so that kind of reading, that is possible if you put the letter from Mecca or the letter from Hajj, because he was in Jeddah actually when he wrote it, but the letter from Hajj in the context of his broader history, which he never deviated from, right? For Malcolm, being a Muslim was always being Black. It was always being anti-racist. It was always understanding white supremacy as a form of shirk, right? Understanding it as a form of idolatry that needed to be destroyed. And so that, I think, is a work that a lot of people may not want to do, right? Like they want to have like I said, an I have a dream version of Malcolm, yeah.
Yeah, so I wonder if it's sort of like, so on one hand, you're saying that folks are, so the kind of Malcolm made Hajj now became Muslim, absolves whiteness or absolves white people from dealing with whiteness. But I wonder, does it also absolve people from dealing with Blackness too?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, there's this exchange that happens with Malcolm, and I think the magazine is Al Muslimun. It's a Switzerland-based, from the Islamic Center in Switzerland, which was, I think, led by Tariq Ramadan's father, Saeed Ramadan. And they had sent him a list of questions, and he actually wrote out the answers in the final week of his life and sent it back to them. And he's very clear that he is not going to abandon his commitment to Black people, because they don't understand with this, kind of embrace they interpret as, quote unquote, Orthodox Islam. Why are you still talking about race? And he's being very clear that he has to. And I think that for a lot of Muslims who celebrate Malcolm, well, let me just say this. So Malcolm's time in the Nation of Islam is a challenge for a lot of Muslims who are not in the Nation of Islam. It's probably a challenge for Muslims who are in the Nation of Islam, seeing how that story went. But it's a challenge because of these questions of practice and faith that are different from how people understand the tradition of Islam, right? The quote unquote heterodoxy. I don't like using doxies, right? But for people to understand, it wasn't what we consider Sunni Islam, right? And so people engage Malcolm in a narcissistic way. They only want to deal with the Malcolm they can see themselves in, right? And so for a lot of people, they're like, I only see myself in the post-Meccan Malcolm. Well, if that's all you see yourself, that's sad, right? Because Malcolm visited the Middle East and in 1959. He forged relationships in 1959 that he would later revisit in 1964 after leaving the Nation of Islam. So that even if you don't want to go back to 1949 when he was an incarcerated person, you can still look at the 1950s when Malcolm is fashioning these important and forming these important relationships with Muslims and really engaging Islam in a dialogic way, right? Like as something that he understands himself to be. And so I think in that you find, the roots of I think the power of Islam in America to, like I said, challenge the idolatry and shirk of white supremacy. You find the power of Islam in America to speak to as a kind of public moral voice to racial inequity and injustice, to police brutality, to incarceration, to like all of the ills that were evident in American society as Malcolm as a self-identified Muslim was speaking to that throughout his entire career. And the ways that he spoke to that, there is nothing about the ways that he analyzed those things as a Muslim that are not compatible with our Islam, right? And so that's why I think it's important for us to engage that history.
No, thank you. And I got one last question before we let you go. So our theme is Black Legacies, Black Futures, right? And so one of the things that I've heard members of Malcolm's family sort of kind of call out the Muslim community in the United States, saying you should claim him, right? And I'm wondering if you might speak to that. Like, why are we claiming him? Are we not claiming him? And how would our future, right? How would Black futures be different, right? If we claimed Malcolm in all this complexity, right?
I think we by claiming Malcolm, we access his history as a resource in terms of all of this political knowledge and analysis. We access his history as a critical tool with which to analyze our present condition. And we access his history as a living practice with which to move forward. I think we have to claim all of Malcolm. So the picture we started with was Malcolm in prayer. And that is Malcolm, that is a Muslim picture of Malcolm as much as it's a Black picture of Malcolm, right? And I look at this picture of Malcolm at a rally. And to me, that is a picture that is as much Malcolm as a Muslim as is Malcolm as a Black activist. And I think we need to not try to disentangle Blackness and Islam. And I think if we claim Malcolm and claim all of Malcolm, that helps us understand that intricate relationship between the best of the Black progressive tradition and the best of the progressive, and I say progressive meaning the kind of Islam that is going to counter the hegemonic practices of white supremacy and racism in America.
Right. Well, thank you. Wow, that was really powerful to hear. I mean, and of course, whenever I talk to you, I want to keep talking. We don't have time for that today.
Well, thank you for having me. Happy birthday to Brother Malcolm. Happy birthday to Sister Yuri Kuchiyama. Happy birthday to Sapelo Square.
Happy birthday to
Lorraine Hansberry. That's right.
Happy birthday. And in our heads, we got to be professional. In our heads, we're singing the Stevie Wonder version of that. So
That's right.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Zaheer.
All right. Assalamu alaikum.
Back to our host.
That was an amazing conversation. I need, hey friend, can you claim all of Malcolm on a t-shirt? Because that is an ongoing conversation. Thank you.
Bars. That would be a tight.
Right here. I also want to sort of lift up, which I think was definitely present in that conversation, the importance of us recognizing the full complexity of Malcolm. I think we do ourselves a disservice when we only highlight or honor him as a political figure.
Right.
Overlook his spiritual journey, right? We overlook his belief in God. We overlook his practice and his commitment to his people, but we overlook like his spiritual revelations and what that meant for him, and how that was a guiding force for his life. And so, inshallah, we can do better at loving the fullness of Malcolm.
Yeah, I think that's a big deal. He was amazing in that regard. And the first thing that I remember my father telling me about Malcolm is that he was someone who could always admit when he was wrong as he grew. I believe this, I don't believe that anymore, and keep going. And and that took a humility, right, to be that sincere of a student. You know what I mean? To be able to make those transitions. Very powerful. So we're ready for our next artist to
we are. Please introduce them.
All right. Tariq Toure is a author and award-winning poet from West Baltimore. What is it about? I love people from Baltimore. Every time I meet someone from Baltimore, I'm checking for him. He is known as the Amiri Baraka of our era. He's the author of 2 poetry collections, and his work has been featured on Salon and Washington Post and Sapelo Square, among others. Black Seeds, his debut collection of poetry, was awarded Best Poetry Book of Baltimore in City Paper magazine. Regarded as the Amiri Baraka of our era, Tariq is winner of the HBCU Top 30 Under 30, as well as the Huffington Post Noor 25. And so without further ado, we pass it over to Tariq Toure and his work and wisdom.
اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدره ومقداره العظيم. How did I get here? Well, that's God's intentions. As far as drip, they'll say Touré always brought the water with him, carved a lane in this game. That's a large incision. Don't know much, but I can tell you what a problem isn't. Burning the stage down, not a hard decision. Want my stripes? It's going to take a couple scars to get them. Our 45 year open mic, no Rod and Pippin, literary shots. We leave large and livers when every bar is a baptism. The applause is different. I'm a product of Malcolm calling out to Allah in prison. My mama Maisha moving through the mirage in prisons. Dear father, Imam Malik, show me where the art is hidden. I'm a griot out the mud. You better guard your business. Been everywhere. Grab a globe and start the spinning. But the Baltimore poets are liable to carve your kidneys. When you thought it's the last model, we enlarged the engine. So my fate is on stages, fade in anything under God's dominion. That's a fact. I see they've had the wrong opinion when the difference between us is clearly yards to inches for the money. Well, that's an odd incentive. When the smoke been free, you get your pulse paused for pennies. Forrest Gump with gumption, you better guard your winnings. I've been training my whole life to swing far in innings. I'm at bat. You think I'm gonna let him catch Tariq slipping? When my name means start, a room on Mars is plenty. Let's dig a little bit deeper. I'm from where they let the long nose ring like Rodman, with blacked out cars skirt like Scotland, and Hershey Topman. I'm at work, just watch when I get these verses clocked in. I'm a poems poet. I'm a locksmith. I hold keys from the kingdom to the coroner's office. And as important as art is to properly perceive what was poured in this artist, we have to begin by exploring the coffins. The first lock I ever picked was to a funeral home to see why so many kings were taking 2 to the dome, why we were recruiting the chrome. And my OG said, no way in hell could we do it alone. So lo and behold, I was birthed and immersed in a tradition of transmitting the mission to the masses. So the muscle memory bank is lifting for the mass and lifting up the caskets so the world can never get it backwards. I'm one of them kids that flipped up on the mattress, then was told to slip up in them classes. Don't give up till it's mastered. Grip up on the masters, mix it with knowledge itself and switch the whip up on the masters to only climb the mountain if it's massive. I'm a walking, talking, marching order to be a margin forcer. So I'm spitting continents and dissolving borders. I'm a pen pirate on ink oceans. Guard your water. I'm one of many oral orcas, and we've been whaling on pages since the Middle Passage poured us. Sort of. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. This next poem is in context about mass incarceration, which Maulana Malcom X fell victim to, but it's also a reflection on when I finally read Khalif Browder's story, and I decided that I wanted to illuminate his story, but so many other Black people who have just been churned in and out of the system like a conveyor belt. I got caught browsing through the Browders in my browser. Now I thought out of the thousands of prison houses that are crowded, how many of those shackled by hands and feet are just like Khalif, just like Corey Wise, and got caught up in the street. Even if they were caught up in the streets, there's a stage full of Ray fools caught in this bind. Wrong signal, wrong signs, wrong country, wrong time. And no doubt, depending on the DA, the punishment for the crime is bound to be cruel and unusual. Ain't no slaps on the wrist, they'll hand you a whole funeral. They was throwing 20 and a nickel for pumping some nickels like my folks on boats and planes. I guess this country is fickle. We just confronting the issue. 15 for a Glock, we can all buy stock in the same companies that's hustling missiles. So if we gonna cut through the BS, let's cut through the tissue. Believe it or not, every day is a Dred Scott. The The birth to prison highway ain't never been gridlocked. Every hour there's a Browder. Every minute there's an Emmett. This system is deep. My people was deep in it. We always knew which way the law shifts, because they still leasing out convicts. Every city's a car lot. Every hood is an auction. They lease a youngin' like they lease Nissans. $80,000 a prison bed. They can't see the we pawns. And that's just the stipend subsidized by the state. Every bar of soap, every tube of toothpaste, all line their pockets down to the child with metal trays. Crime pays. Blind pays. Your hands can't free what your eyes can't see. They hide the horror in the laws behind some applause. Before your jaw can touch the floor, another shackle ankle stampede. You damn right Uncle Sam need him. Because who else gonna do the damn bleeding? And they don't even need a square reason. When us breathing is free air is treason. Our skin is probable cause and effect. You get caught with this tone, you too might be calling collect. Margin for errors the shoestring, don't fall out of step. Don't blink for a second, they'll send you up north in a sec. And I can't name a jail cell that ever had buyer's remorse. I could fill the 7 C's with the tears of black mothers crying in court. Mama mortgaged the house for the bail. They charging with 7 counts for a sale. When was touching down that the docks daily amounts to a well. It all amounts to a well. With the path he was hitting, we had to hit him to hell. Or the drug war is the prerogative. Zero tolerance. Cuff him by any means or use a hollow tip. See, what the problem is the chances are so slim of coming out of it that our whole life is damn near hanging upon a scholarship. Or there's something larger at stake. Maybe the larger the prison population, the larger the stakes. Because whether it was textbooks in that backpack or it was harboring weight, we still had to fall to the fate. The question was always, who else gonna pick this cotton? Who else gonna fill these cots when they needing some more profit? And ain't too many options. When we the only option, you could be pitching rocks in, loading the whole Glock clip, or you could be walking to work. Right before you clock in, let a couple cops spin. See how fast you be locked in. I look at my son and can't help but see the facts between us, that it could easily be a glass between us. So I'm on my knees every night. I never know when my time's up. I guess to be a black man in America is to live every day in a lineup. Alhamdulillah. During the slave revolts in South America, one of the Mujahideen, the Muslims from Western Africa, they found an amulet, and on it, and in that amulet, he had on a piece of paper written the dua of Ibrahim that he made when he built the Kaaba, that his lineage would keep Islam with them in their hearts, souls, and minds. And Ibrahim making that dua, I always reflect on as being answered with this miraculous gathering of Islam that has happened here in America on these shores from our ancestors. So this is related to that prayer of Ibrahim. The kings of old used to pray that lineage grows so the kingdom and kingship could keep an infinite flow. Sons, crown jewels on iron fists, infinity stones. Any slight threat to legacy equal the slit of a throat. They'd reign for centuries off children alone. One power in your tribe, count the kids in your home. Rule by sword and umbilical cord are given with both. And these kings thought that they were given the most. Civilizations carried on in a cyclical flow. Dynasty after dynasty, they died defending the throne, preserving their reign with every minute they own. And mankind's preoccupation with dominion could lead one to the opinion that if our life is measured in inches, then we spend our lifetimes inching towards domination and dissension. Has anyone ever asked God for any different? I should mention that a black woman once ran between the mountains in the desert with an infant crying out, dried mouth, heavy sweat, and with no food in sight. She scouted every direction. The heat grew, they couldn't last an hour in this weather. Then outpoured a stream of water flowing in the distance. She drank her fill to stop the wailing of her infant. The well of Zamzam is born, a miracle in minutes. Hajar and Ismail survived, but Father Ibrahim was missing. And upon return from his sojourn, he would move to the place where he learned the Kaaba would be built. And his concern was that this family of theirs would one day grow to serve the Lord Most High and raise hands to the sky for Allah to never let the light of Islam die. For as long as their lineage stays alive, on and on, for a millennia they would thrive. Not for riches piled to the mountain line, not for sovereignty over what's under the sky, but that sujud be established when he died, that the qulub be attached to the eye. He prayed for generations of prostrations, showed us how sincere niyyah can turn nation, paved the path for success in seeking salvation. I'm standing here as a manifestation. We're gathered here as a representation. How is this related? Small illustration. My pops was dealing dimes a dean up on the dope strip. You can still see the lines of fiends getting their nose hit. Allah still raising odd degrees. We never know if people like them never bent their knees and exposed this reality, this path we call Islam. One single believer starts the cracking of the dam. When this nation was being built by the cracking of the lash, when Reagan was placing the crack upon our hands, those same palms were the same ones happening to have sincere prayer and sincere cries. Look within those layers within their lives, because within their lives, a truth so pure it would singe our eyes. Tell me how within our time, as enemies within their lines, Allah will raise another people to defend his signs, delivering us from evil until the mission dies. Everything that's happened has happened for a reason. Every single action has mattered for this meaning. With a result of prayer mats upon the cement, the divine outcome of prayer is cast into the ether. What it means, we don't just happen to believe, but this is the purchased path of Ibrahim. From the very hands of Ibrahim, from Philly to Philistine, from Mali to Manhattan. Take a look at what can happen. This path is a jewel. Ain't no happening to have it. It only happens if you grab it and hold it so tight it starts to fashion into granite. And that stone becomes a mountain. And that alone becomes a fountain. And then in droves, we drink the ounces. The spring that springs forth will have many stories to tell. When they ask how the children were saved, we'll have no choice but to point to the well. Alhamdulillah. We make a dua that Allah changes our hearts. And so one of the attractions, the magnetism that Malcom X has for us is that his heart changed the very millisecond that Allah would bring him a sign. And we can only aspire to be able to have a heart that changes like his. So this poem is dedicated to him, but more so that ability in his heart to change, that purity that no matter what he went through, no matter how dark it got, he was still able to change on the drop of a dime. I was told the truth out of season might get you killed. Well, Malcolm died in the winter. And I don't know what's colder than taking gunfire in the center of the same heart that beat like a djembe drum for his people. My Umi says they'll always come for the people who dare have the audacity to proclaim us equal. So his sinister sudden death is yet another sequence in a sequel. Better yet, a chapter in the saga. He lays in the path of other martyrs. And I wish that this was some abstraction unthought of, that the bullets that claimed him had no name. But if you know, as he knew, without a molecule of doubt, that is not the nature of this game. When his soul was placed upon this plane, he painted with his entire life as a canvas and placed it in a frame. His truth still lingers. His truth still remains. I can taste it when it rains. But for abolition, they'll engrave your alias on ammunition and try to say the case is cold before Allah can raise your soul. But in these days, just know that his last breaths and his last steps never ended at the ballroom. February 21st was yet another pit stop in Harlem, as it was in Detroit, Chi-Town, Boston, same as Nigeria, Egypt, Ghana, Slauson. You can still feel the Malcolm in all of them. We take our lead from the prince, and then we breathe for the prince. His single pursuit was hawk, and we've been breathing it since. So send salutations to the man who died 3 times over, first as an outcast, second as a prisoner, third time as a soldier, who saw his people being crushed by the weight of the world, and then placed it on his shoulders. See, something happened in that prison that's crafted every instance when a soul realizes the reality of living within this gap that we are given, that we'd been masterfully hidden from the light of his dominion. And once that veil has been lifted, there's not a colonizer alive that can extinguish this flame. Severing 1,000 tongues won't make us relinquish his name. Don't let one ear of our children not hear about the man among men, about those towering shoulders as we stand upon them. Today, we let our prayers of forgiveness land upon him, because he taught us to love ourselves. That every hourglass's sands have one end. Shabazz gave us everything he had. His darkness, his light, his love, his life. And though our people still march through the night, though there are far more waters to wade in, we are armored for the fight. We are illuminated by his soul. We are awakened by his rage. And it was all written in gold with dried ink upon the page. Let the world forever know, from every sinner to every sage, that merely his body was taken on that stage. Autobahn. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you all so much for my time. So my mother said she just recently talked to her, made dua for your mother. So inshallah, may Allah continue to support Sapelo's work, and may Allah allow us to come together in the community. Assalamu alaikum.
The press in this country is used and has been used very skillfully to create images. And in creating these images, it actually misleads people, confuses people, to the point where we here in America live in a racist society. We're the victims of racism, we're the victims of segregation, we're the victims of these injustices. But when we cry out against these injustices in an uncompromising language, we are the ones who are called racist, and we are the ones who are called extremists, and we are the ones who are called. But for no reason other than the fact that we take an uncompromising stand against racism, they call us racist. Or because we take an uncompromising stand against segregationists, they call us segregationists. This is the press that does this. So that when we start crying out against the crime, instead of people looking at us as victims of the crime who are reacting to the crime, they see us in the image that the press has created as racists who have no justification whatsoever for reflecting the type of attitude that we do. And this press is used very skillfully at the local level by the police. It's used at the national level by the FBI. It's used at the international level by the CIA for doing nothing other than creating images that will justify at the local level whatever the police want to do to their victims, or at the national level whatever the FBI wants to do to its victims, or at the international level whatever the CIA wants to do to its victims. They create the victim in the image of an extremist. And once the victim is projected in the image of an extremist, then everything the victim does, even to defend itself from other people's extremism, is an act of extremism. They create the victim in the image of someone who is violent, and then when the victim is doing something, is struggling vigorously to protect itself from the violence of others, the victim is made to appear in the image of a criminal itself, and the criminal is projected in the image of someone who's the victim. The press does this. And people in this country especially are victimized by it more so than any people any place on this earth. They create images for the power structure. And in a nutshell, they make the criminal look like the victim.
Peace. Assalamu alaikum, y'all. Yeah, you know, when you hear the words of Malcolm like that, you already know that he was speaking truth that is, shining bright right now. And it's important that, we remember that, Malcolm X, like Sapelo Square's ethic is, do for self, that we are an all volunteer squad. Shout out to all the squad members who work tirelessly to help build this platform and keep it going. We do this for self, and we invite you to join us as we represent you in our work, right? So please do not only hesitate to donate to Sapelo Square, but also please remember to tell others to do the same, because this is heavy lifting. He was doing a lot of heavy lifting. When you think about the work that he's done early in those times with so little resources, it's really beautiful, right? And so we appreciate all of our donors. There's no such thing as a donor that doesn't matter. Every penny matters. Every dollar matters. These voices, they need to be heard, and they need to be supported. We absolutely here at Sapelo Square need your help. We need your help. And so I ask you to donate and to tell others to donate, please. And I believe we're going to move into our next conversation, which is important and related to a lot of the things that the last poet just spoke about. We have an amazing discussion here on deck. Would you like to do the introduction, sister? You want to do it?
I will.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes. All right. Great. Okay. All right. Assalamu alaikum. So we're back. Again, I'm Dr. Swad, and I'm here. We're now joined with a dear brother from the community, Brother Jihad Abdulmumit. He is a community activist, motivational speaker, author, and playwright. He was a member of the Black Panther Party and served 23 years in prison as a political prisoner. He is currently chairperson of the National Jericho Movement, an organization that defends and supports political prisoners and campaigns for their release. Thank you so much, Brother Jihad, for joining us on this conversation that we're trying to have now about Malcolm X and the prison industrial complex, right? I think one of the things that, one of the reasons why we chose the Malcolm clip before was talking about the role of the press and the role of sort of the ways in which narratives, right, make victims, right, criminals or criminals victims. And so I thought that was important to play and think about this question of prisons. And so one of the things about Malcolm is that he's known for his politics, and part of his politicization happens while he's incarcerated. So I was wondering if you could draw on your own expertise, experience, right, to kind of speak to the relationship between politics and prisons. Specifically, like I said, in relationship to your experience as a political prisoner. And what do we need to know, right, about political prisoners in particular, right, when it comes to the effort to dismantle the prison industrial complex?
Okay. All right. Thank you, my dear sister. And assalamu alaikum to our listeners. And bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, alhamdulillah. All praise be to Allah. Allah guard my tongue and what I say. And trying to give good advice and share in the process of sharing my experience. It's more than just a question, sister, because my answer, I hope it goes into giving momentum and direction to a movement to actually change the conditions. Because a lot of times when we celebrate Al-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz, Malcolm X, he is definitely our Black shining prince that is celebratory. But I want to try to make sure that it is understood what I say, is geared toward motivating people to make a change in their life so that we can be the Malcolm, not just looking at him and vibing off of his words and doing nothing about it. But you asked a loaded question, and prisons, plays a major role in our lives because so many people from the Black community end up in prison. And as we all know, the famous statistic that the United States accounts for about 5% of the world's population and 25% of the prison population. That's more per capita, also including China, with many more people than the United States. So the numbers are real numbers, and they're also proportionate to our size to the rest of the world. It's the thing, but the prison industrial complex, I guess this term coming from analogy of the military industrial complex, when you have this massive buildup and proliferation of prisons, particularly starting, I guess, with Nixon regime in the United States and the war on drug and the proliferation of prisons and the influx of people of color into the penitentiaries, state and federal, across the United States. This phenomena, as it is burgeoning out like that, actually happened after the death of Malik al-Shabazz, even though we know that prisons in from the black codes and slave plantation, black codes, black people always been victimized the most by that. But this burgeoning thing that would be able to capture the word prison industrial complex, reflects the burgeoning process of building prisons and using prison labor, slave labor, black labor to build and produce things for the state, and the proliferation of private prison and industries to make these products. I know when I was in prison in Leavenworth Penitentiary, I had worked, just to show you, making paintbrushes, for example. We
Wow.
get paid, and this I was rich in prison, so my $10 a day is rich compared to the couple of cents somebody may get in the state. But this is a federal system, and they had what is called Unicor back then. But check this out. So you would get $10 for maybe 244 brushes, but each paintbrush may sell for $15.
Wow.
So I'm getting $10 for making all 244, and they sell on the market for 15. So if that's not exploitation, I don't know what it is. But there it is. And so there is a correlation between that. And so Malcolm's, okay, the first part of your question, the role of prisons in our life and what does it mean in these transformations. Malcolm's life was turned around from what they call street thug, or just brother man on the street selling drugs and involved in those different things like that. And he comes inside and he gets introduced to the nation, and everybody that my generation going to prison, reading the dictionary was code for you better get down to studying and getting yourself together.
Right.
There is if you can see my hands, what happens in prison is a mirror of what happens in the community. And what happens in the community is a mirror of what happens in the prison. All right. So, and I follow this very closely. So each one kind of like relates to the other. One time one is leading the more influential than the other. So I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm talking about. There's an interconnection between all of this. So when the consciousness, the political consciousness and awareness is high in the community, I'm saying the street, then it reflects how it tends to be inside the prison. Okay. Conversely, when it's high in the prison, it also affects what is happening in the street, because it's a mirror of things. So when the conscious level is low, and I'm talking about conscious level, I'm talking about revolutionary consciousness. I'm not just it's a different type of consciousness that we're talking about when we're talking about Malcolm X. We're talking about consciousness that leads to, you understanding your self-worth, you recognizing that there's no God but Allah, your creator. And he was a Muslim. And a lot of times we take bites out of Malcolm. Everybody's pulling him like this, but we need to recognize that the man bore witness that there's no God but Allah. Muhammad is his messenger. That's the page that he died on. So when we look at him, we make sure that all of us take into consideration where he ended and where he was going, to really grasp the appreciation of Malcolm. So when there's consciousness on the street, sister, it reflects in the prison by organizations and things of this nature. Sisters and brothers in prison become politicized, revolutionized, and that reflects back into the streets like that. But when it starts to break down in the community, which it has ever since the 80s, starting with the crack cocaine epidemic, the counterintelligence program decimating the revolutionary organization, including the Black Panther Party, then it reflects in the lowering of awareness in the prisons, in the organizing in the prison. Back when Malcolm X went to prison, the Nation of Islam was very strong. And so that reflected itself in his influence in the prison and what was able to capture him in the prison. If there wasn't no Nation of Islam organization to the strength that it was then that would not have been that influence that Malcolm received. And he might still came out as Brother Johnny Walker Red or whatever he was called.
Right.
So, but you see how that correlation was. It was because it was a strong movement on the street that influenced the thinking of a brother, in his case, Malcolm X, and then he comes home and he builds even more of that. Right. The same thing with the Black liberation movements, when we were strong on the streets with all kinds of organizations and the Puerto Rican liberation movements and the Young Lords, the Black Panther Party, Black Liberation Army, Revolutionary Action Movement, Republic of New Africa, all these movements, that was on the street, it made us strong. There was the Dar Islam movement back in the 60s, that when I know I went to prison, the Muslim communities were very well organized. It was about building movements on the street with brothers getting ready to go home so they can participate in building in their community. But now with the demise of a lot of that type of thinking and assimilation into society, we see less of prison movements today. So the experience that Malcolm went through, you know, can best be seen in the light of movements being strong on the street so that we can craft those things. The same thing with the last example I want to give is with George Jackson, a notable revolutionary, a member of the Black Panther Party, and one of the founders of the Black Guerrilla family out in California, assassinated by the prison guards out there. You know, he became an icon for the Black revolutionary movement. And he went in, you know, just, you know, with a $70 gas station robbery and got whatever it was, 1 day to life or whatever it was that he got. But he revolutionized himself and he was able to shape a movement that was on the street, and we still refer him today. So the prisons will still be the prisons until we get movements to dismantle that whole process. So that, I hope that's even the answer to the first part of the question that you answered.
Right. And then in terms of the second part, I guess in terms of, so, because it sounds to me also that sort of this decline you're saying of consciousness, right?
Revolutionary consciousness.
Revolutionary consciousness. I've already seen that. I've always seen the sort of prison as a part of that in terms of the incarceration. So like what happens to sort of revolutionaries? You get killed or you get incarcerated, right? And that being part of it. And so I'm wondering about what is the status of political prisoners today, right? Like what do we need to know about that? When we talk, because a lot of people right now, particularly Muslim communities as well, are talking about prisons and the prison industrial complex, but I don't think we talk enough or at all really about political prisoners. And so could you educate us a bit about that? Like what does it mean to be a political prisoner and what is the status right now?
Right, good question, sister. So political prisoners, there's several definitions, but I know in Jericho, and like again, I'm the chairperson of this wonderful organization of comrades, sisters and brothers that represent sisters and brothers that have been in movements in the past. So from the 60s and 70s and so forth to right now. But we focus on, when we say political prison, we're referring to individuals that have committed their life based upon their ideology and outlook, you know, to changing things, to fighting against oppression and building their communities. All right. Now, they could have been set up, framed by the counterintelligence program, framed by the police. Something really didn't go down or whatever. Or maybe they actually pulled an action off because that's what it was about those days. And we salute those sisters and brothers that actually fought with weapons in their hands against the police state. And we're proud of that. A lot of times today, we kind of shy away from that because the society has made us, as Malcolm was saying, made the victim look like the criminal. So it's Nat Turner now is the criminal. So Nat Turner, Sojourner Truth, and Harriet Tubman, all of us are criminals now. Let the wrong person tell history. And so we have to make sure that, just like Sapelo right now is making sure that we hear the history as it is. Do not be ashamed. Be proud of our history. How can we build on that? We have political prisoners today that's been in prison now for going on 50 years or so. Rushell McGee is well over, there was Angela Davis case there with the Marine County shootout. He's still in California. He's on his 50 some odd year. We have brothers that's in the Black Panther Party that's on their 48th, 59th, 50th year. We have Imam Jamil Al-Amin that's going on 20 years. We have Muslims that's political prisoners, and Matulu Shakur and Varanza Bowers and Malman Kabir, many of the names you may not know, Jalil Abdulmumit, Kojo Momani, Sundiata Kohli. A lot of people talk about Asada Shakur, then we know that she has a co-defendant that's 83 years old, dying in prison right now. And so when we talk about political prison, let me tell you this. The strongest connection that we can possibly have with any movement, past and moving forward, is with our support of these political prisoners. It is hypocritical or naive. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt to say naive, because if you know better and you don't support them, then you're definitely a hypocrite. You need to get off the set because you're in the way of our freedom. But it's naive if you just don't know. And then, so here it is, and so that you will know that the most strongest connection to move forward with addressing issues of oppression, exploitation, mass incarceration, the prison industrial complex, racism, police violence, shooting brother man, Ahmed on the street, all these type of things. You know, these struggles are rooted in these political prisoners, and they've been there for decades, and they're rotting in prison. So the most live connection is not necessarily in a book, which books are important. but it's with these individuals that are still alive today that need our support to get them, our money support. So before you buy that other fifth of gin or something like that, we need to be seeing who these prisoners are so we can get them out. Because the truth be told, sister, political prisoners is a reality in the United States. I've been overseas numerous times to the United Nations to preach about this, to garner international support. And people are looking at me incredulously, what, the United States has political prisoners? The United States denies this existence. And the public doesn't have a clue. Because when you talk about political prisoners, you must be talking about some foreigner overseas, in which there are political prisoners in the United States that are from overseas. Afia Siddiqui is one of them, a dear sister, Muslim sister in Carswell, Texas right now, doing 80-some years for some nonsense. So there are political prisoners. We support them all. But we're talking about those who are indigenous to the United States that are rooted in our history. And so when we talk about the prison industrial complex, we got to talk about the political prisoners inside. And some political prisoners, just like George Jackson, and many sisters and brothers that grew their consciousness inside and are not being let out because their continual involvement in educating other prisoners and building movements inside.
Brother Jihad, like when I asked you to do this and to participate today, I knew we were not going to have enough time, and I said we're going to have to kind of do. This is going to be a teaser, right? So we can we can get back in. But I did want to ask you one other question before we go.
Yes, indeed.
About this international piece that you sort of brought up, right? One of the things, right, when we think about Malcolm, when in addressing the conditions that Black people face, right, he took an international Pan-African third world approach, right? Like one of the last things he did was going to sort of take the United States to the UN, right? So I'm wondering, right, what do you think that looks like today? Like, are we doing that? Should we be doing those kind of things? Like, what does that look like today?
Right. Well, Malcolm said there's a pioneer for that. So there are a lot of efforts with those movements that do exist to try to always make connections. I would like to draw people's attention to the National Jericho Movement and In the Spirit of Nelson Mandela. If we can check those resources out when you get off, that there's an international tribunal that's being planned for October 2021. So hopefully the pandemic or the COVID-19 won't impact that so much, charging high crimes, including genocide and racism against the United States government. That's on an international scale. So there's a lot of things. But let me tell you what's different. Back then, when Malcolm was bringing it and saying that we should take it to the international scale, to the United Nations, not as civil rights, is also human rights, but then, but now the United Nations itself has been rendered, damn near, pardon my language, impotent. You don't expect them to do nothing for real or anything for real, really. Do you? Have they? No. Especially when it comes to our issues, they haven't. So that wasn't readily apparent when Malcolm was alive, but I'm telling you it is now. Because we're talking to a bunch of milquetoast individuals that are impotent. The United States doesn't even pay its dues to you. So the UN is no pressure on the United States to even listen to what the United States does. To the UN does. But so what we would have to do when we're talking about taking it national is taking it directly to other countries and getting the support of other countries to put pressure on this body called the United Nations to get them to be a conduit for us to be able to corral and organize international support amongst our issues, because we are oppressed. The racism in the United States against Black people and people of color in the United States is manifested by wars of imperialism against people and Black people around the world. So that racism that we experience from Ahmed getting shot in Atlanta is the same racism that they have our sisters and brothers calling support the troops, killing people flagrantly around the world, that's causing blockades against Cuba, so they're trying to starve out a small country. We see it played out on the international scale, and we see it played out in the national scale, all the way from Ahmed to Cuba to Venezuela to all these places where the United States is spreading its venom. And it can't be more pronounced now than under this demon that's in office called Donald Trump.
Right.
And if anybody doesn't see that now, they won't and never see it. So, but I just want to say, I know my time is just adding to this Malcolm X piece real quick. And we have to be Malcolm. And I'm talking to the young sisters and brothers, particularly now, because the ones with shirt and ties, okay, you got it. You got resources and you're not putting it to really work. But our young sisters and brothers who Malcolm talked to, we cannot be the ignorant ones that we are continue to be. We cannot be the ones that have negative music that's talking about killing each other, disrespecting our sisters, women, disrespecting themselves, decimating our own communities with drugs and violence and rape and pillage of our own selves, and expect the white man to do something different for us. I'm telling you right now that we have to, in our organizing, we have to be able to address the things that Malcolm addressed. He was in the hood telling the sister and brother they got to stand up straight, be right, recognize their Lord, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or whatever you believe in. If you're a Christian or a Jew, connect with that and put your practice to work and transform society. If you want to be Jewish, then act like Moses. If you want to be a Christian, then act like Isa or Jesus. Peace and blessing be upon all of it. You want to be like Malcolm, then we're going to act like Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we're going to do the transformation in our community. So we just want to have a program, and then that's it. And this celebration of Malcolm means, and I'll set up, not unless you have a question. Celebration of Malcolm X means a renewed commitment to our freedom and self-determination in a place called the United States of America. If it doesn't mean that to you, then good luck with your X on your baseball cap. Get out the way, because you got strong sisters and brothers coming at you.
All right, thank you. That was a powerful. That was what we call you just dropped the mic on us, Brother Jihad. That's right. And thank you so much for those inspiring words. And you're right. If we're not committed to sort of liberation, and we're not committed to that, then we're not really celebrating commemorating Malcolm. And so I really appreciate what you contributed today. And we at Sapelo Square, are going to look forward to bringing you back. Right, so we can really get more deeply into the things you're talking about. We're going to encourage folks to go to the Jericho movement, check out. There's lots of information there, ways to support political prisoners. And with that, I want to thank you again, Brother Jihad, and we're going to turn it back to our hosts, Adisa and Rashida.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you.
Walaikum assalam.
The mic is hot. It's hot. It is hot. We're back, Adisa. Are you back with us?
Sorry about that. That was pretty live wire right there.
It was. So basically, in summary, Brother Jihad said, please get your life together. Figure out what your spiritual mission is so that you can leave a beauty mark on this world. What do you want to do in your community? How can you better yourself? And better our condition. What are we going to do to move forward? So he gave us some marching orders. So hopefully people take heed. I also want to bring attention to, I'm going to read this because I'm astonished, and not astonished in a good way. So, did you know that over 250,000 people in the state of Georgia are being denied the right to vote because they're either on parole or probation? They pay taxes, they contribute to the growth of their communities, yet they're systematically denied the right to make decisions about where their tax dollars are spent and how their communities grow. So Atlanta, the Iman branch in Atlanta is doing a Atlanta enfranchisement campaign to sort of work to get these voting rights back. The fact that Georgia, just one state alone, has over 250,000 people who can't vote, and most of these people are Black and brown folks, is intentional. It is a problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so hopefully, as we sort of go forward and more information is sort of like spread widely about this campaign, folks will be mindful of supporting and putting their energy, their volunteer hours, and their coins behind this initiative. This is something that we need to address, and it's urgent.
No, that is a really big deal, and I think that it's tough for me sometimes because I was brought into a lot of this movement through a woman Panther named Sister Kilu Nyasha, may she rest in peace. You know what I'm saying? And she introduced me to Geronimo Pratt, who was a political prisoner at the time, and he mentored me from jail through his letters, for many years. And, I didn't know who he was until I met her. She was my political science teacher, and when it was the same time I met, Tupac Shakur. And so, that was Tupac's godfather, you know what I'm saying? And so, making sure that we do as much as we can for incarcerated individuals, you know what I'm saying, while they're in, as soon as they get out, it's important. It's important that they're able to vote. You know what I'm saying? Like once their debt to society is paid, then that's what it should be, you know, that conversation that Dr. Suat just had with the brother was just amazing. And this is why we need people to donate. This is why we need people to contribute to Sapelo Square. This is why, you know, the legacy of Malcolm, it continues. And, you know, like the brother said, it's really easy to wear the X hats and whatever, but, you know, we need to continue to take action, right? Because actions are continually being taken against us. And so I'm really glad that you shared that Atlanta enfranchisement campaign, because it's important, you know.
Yeah, we need to remember our people. And I think I just want to thank Brother Jihad again, because it's really important for us, as we said, not to pick and choose what parts of Malcolm we want to honor. If you are in these streets questioning if you should give to organizations who are helping folks who are currently incarcerated or who are attempting to re-enter their communities, you might be tripping, because Malcolm so full
you might be
right? If you believe in Malcolm's legacy, if you want to honor the full complexity, the beauty, and the hardships of the path that he traveled, it's important for you to also support those who are walking similar paths. We need to do the work, and we need to love on all of our people.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And I think are we ready for our next conversation?
We are. Let's do it.
All right. So now Dr. Suad is going to speak with Margari Hill. Margari Hill is a value community organizer and educator, a recipient of the Big Heart Award in 2017. And she is also the co-founder and executive director of the Muslim Anti-Racism Collaborative, Muslim ARC, a human rights education organization, and co-founding co-director of the National Black Muslim Coalition, COVID. So now we're going to have a conversation about Malcolm X and COVID-19, yes?
Yes, thank you. Assalamu alaikum, Margari. Thank you for joining us.
Walaikum salam. Thank you for having us. Sapelo is part of the coalition. It's just really beautiful to see, just to listen to the speakers and the performers embodying, you know, our mission, you know, of like healing, of remembering our legacy. So it's just deeply an honor to be here and to witness and just knowing that the, you know, the revolutionary thought, this like the Black radical tradition, like you are all embodying that, and that's being transmitted to the next generation. So that's something like as I'm, you know, getting older, like in my like middle age, like I'm just like, wow, like our young folks like Sapelo, you are all making that happen. So I mean, I just feel so like warmed up, you know, and I also as someone trained as a historian, I want to be able to capture all of those names and all of these stories so that we can preserve that, and that, you know, my generation really works to lift that up, and that we transmit that work to the next generation.
No, definitely. And thank you, Margari. What people don't know this probably, but Margari, like whenever I have a question about something, I'm like, I don't know how to do this. How do you do that? What do you do this? Like I'm texting Margari, like, how do you know? And she's always really wonderful and generous with her knowledge on how to do things. And so I really appreciate that. And the thing that you're presently a part of, right, when we're talking about today, Malcolm X's legacy and COVID-19, is you're part of co-coordinator of the National Black Muslim COVID Coalition. So why don't we start there? Can you just tell us what is the National Black Muslim COVID Coalition and why is it necessary now and in the future?
Yeah, well, you know, we're now kind of really in the midst of this pandemic, and we don't know like how long it's going to last. But what we found was, you know, like when things first started happening, you know, even within the Black community, like there was a lot of misinformation. We didn't think we could get it, you know, like we had a lot of questions. It was like when Idris Elba got, we're like, oh, we get the Rona, you know? So, and then a couple of weeks later, I mean, you know, what we were going to do, what was going to happen with our masajid. And so we know that within, even though like Black Muslims, like we're like deeply rooted in our communities. You know, we typically live in Black communities and really tied with our kinfolk. But at the same time, within the broader, you know, like when people are thinking about responding to Muslims, a lot of times like they'll skip over their you know, they're Black kinfolk that, you know, follow the deed, you know, and so, and then also like within Black spaces, it's a very Christocentric, like they're going to talk about distributing things through the church, you know, like they're not going to always think about the particular needs of people who are not following the Christian tradition. So we had that erasure. And then we know like within Muslim spaces, there tends to be the erasure of Black Muslim perspectives, like being power brokers, even though like we're in, you know, like whether in office, even, you know, you have Muslim adjacent people in office, you know, right? Like, I mean, Obama, you know, Barack Hussein Obama was very Muslim adjacent.
Right.
That's what they accused him of. But still, like when people think about political power and Muslims, they'll skip over Black Muslims, right? And subsume those issues. So we found like, even though there's such good work that was happening locally, even regionally within umbrella organizations, we know that Black Muslims from the beginning have been about mutual aid, have been doing, you know, we have Muslim doctors, we have all these things like best practices, but yet those weren't seen, whether you looked like if you did a Google search, if you tried to find out what was happening, unless you knew directly those, you know, those communities, right? And you knew where their Facebook was, or, you know, you could get onto their prayer line, you know, like those are things that were less accessible. And so what we wanted to do, like we asked around, was there a national Muslim response, like from Black Muslims? Was there anything happening nationally? And it was silent for us, like for a while. And so we went, asked a bunch of people, we didn't see anything. And then within a few days, like, cause it was Dr. Camilla Rashad who reached out to me, and I was like, you know, with social isolation, you're going to have policies happening. You're going to have responses through like the COVID response and recovery. And what I do fear is even for like funding issues, that Black Muslims would not be able to actualize their full, you know, and they would, Black Muslim leaders would also, you know, who are, you know, we're always dealing, we've been in crisis, right? We've been dealing with white supremacy on the extreme levels, like multiple levels. And so we wanted to find a way to lift up Black Muslim leaders by connecting Black Muslim leaders with each other. And so the framework that we had was, you know, and she's like, Dr. Cam is a psychologist. So her work is on healing justice. And my work is on anti-racism and systems change, but also the community organizing framework. And what I found was that we also had a digital divide where Black Muslims have not been involved in digital organizing so that we could find targets and move things. And so we kind of came together and like kind of tried to bring our best, you know, superpowers. Like she convenes people, she does great work in creating these spaces where people feel whole. And I'm looking like right now with Poppin and the BMCC thread, like there is like just pure Black joy as they're talking about food across the diaspora, as they're planning like Eid and lots of jokes, you know, through all of it, right? And so, you know, she's really good at like Black Muslim psychology is like a beautiful Black gathering, like period. And my strength has been, since we started Muslim Arc, we've been doing kind of digitally organizing a community of utilizing these tools to bring people together in digital spaces and to create curriculum and create interactive convenings. And so we brought that together for BMCC, and we have like about 40 volunteers divided in committees across disciplines, from imams and religious scholars, men and women, to mental health, physical health, so doctors, psychologists. So that's another area. We have like our organizing advocacy team. And so what our hope is to really bring through like kind of snowflake organizing, which is connecting leaders across the country and doing that kind of that work of network leaders, where we're not just looking at one person to save us, but looking at all, like each person could be a leader. You know, we're looking at the sisters on the line who's serving food during the iftar, like they are leaders. They're the people that are like the gatekeepers in community. And so how could we learn how they're doing things to make sure that our elders are being fed during this time, are distributing.
I'm sorry, I was gonna say, I was sorry to interrupt you, but I was thinking about Malcolm and related to what you were talking about in questions of mutual aid, right?
Yeah.
And I think, and so I was thinking, and maybe you could expand a little bit on that in terms of the practical steps, right? The coalition is taking to sort of amplify that message, right? This idea of, like, we think about Malcolm, we think about resistance, we think about doing for self, right? And we think about doing things for ourselves and being in community. So maybe if you could talk a little bit about sort of that part of the work as well.
Yeah, I mean, when we first were looking at inspiration for what we, what we wanted to do, I mean, that was our instant inspiration, was like about setting aside our differences. Because, I mean, we're family, we love each other, but like as family, we fight hard, you have siblings, they sometimes have beef with each other. And we knew we had to set aside differences because we're trying to save lives. There are Black Muslims that have died, like how do we make sure it's heartbreaking, and then we have to care for those that are left behind, for the widows, widowers, for the children, for the orphans, like all of that. So like through this whole time, like we have to think about how do we care for each other and set aside what Malcolm X talks about. He said our petty differences so that we could be free. Now, the reality, like we know, like these disparities, we have 2 times the amount of mortality, but tied to that is even like the economic gains that would lead to like some semblance of Black autonomy. Those are being erased right now. So it's like, what are we going to do? Well, what we need to do is like, I'm looking at his, like I just spent a lot of time meditating on his message to the grassroots, where he's talking about the Bandung Conference, which is like one of my favorite historical moments of solidarity, of like newly independent nations coming together and kind of looking at Europe as like, Europe's the problem, right? And there was like that high moment, right? But like was inspired by Bandung, which was in 1955. And he talked about it in this, in the message to the grassroots. And so, this idea of like really challenging, like what are we really trying to do? How we're trying to build power, and so like, are we trying to be accepted? Like, we're not just trying to survive, right? Or just, we are trying to thrive. And so Malcolm's message, right? And the harsh criticism of how we've internalized white supremacy, it resonates right now. It resonates in us making sure that we call in like some of the whether it's the discourses that are blaming Black people for their death and suffering, but it's also, I think, like when thinking about that even with COVID, with social distancing, we must be enraged and ready for action when one of us is gunned down. Like that's just the reality. Like, when Black life is being threatened, we cannot just sit there and just be like, well, I'm just only thinking for myself. But we have the tools, and with what you were saying with Black autonomy, right? To do for self, we have everything that we need, but what we need is each other. And we hope that through trauma-informed community organizing, which is recognizing like, look, we have 400 years of trauma, and those from the motherland, like similar, many years, colonial trauma. And we have trauma as an African diaspora, and that, and it leads to mistrust. And it leads to thinking sometimes on our narrow self-interest, where we may not always think about Black liberation, or we think about Black liberation as a zero-sum game, as opposed to like broader, like what is the world that we're trying to create? And then some people are just trying to like, I'm just trying to get mine and have my side hustle, or it's like a either or, like it's either, like when we're trying to come, trying to overcome things as Black people, that doesn't mean, like it doesn't hurt other people, because we know Black liberation, like when we center with brother, like with the Jericho movement, that's going to help us all. Like it's not a zero-sum game. So, like definitely the spirit of Malcolm, of like doing, of organizing, and even Malcolm as an organizer. A lot of times we think about the spiritual aspect of Malcolm. We think about Malcolm's speech, but we don't think about how Malcolm organized in the Nation of Islam and beyond, and what does that mean, and how do we need to model that as we build our power?
Right. No, thank you. I mean, oh my God, there's never enough time. There's so much here. I think that trauma-informed organizing, I think that's going to stick with me, because I think, you know, when I think about this and COVID too, because even the conversation about us not getting it, right? In some ways, I think might also be a response to trauma, right? Because looking for these ways in which you're exceptional, right? And then of course, our reality is that we're twice as affected. I think I was listening to a news report today in New York, from New York City, where I'm from, and they were saying the rates of COVID, right, among Black people is twice the rates, right, among white New Yorkers, right? And we're going to have to end, but I wanted to give you opportunity just to tell us, you know, how can we get involved? Like, what do we need to do? What do you want folks to do, you know, so that we can sort of support this work? And like, what should we do? What's the call to action?
We got to organize. You know, he left that as a call, right? And ballot, or you know, or the bullet. Like, we have to organize. And so right now we are building that infrastructure together, and we're going to get there together doing that. And so this isn't about one organization or another, but like what we will need to do in the next month is in collaboration. So all the organizers, and I'm going to be doing some reaching out, and our organizers, like we need to kind of have a collection of organizers so that we could do this, build on relationships, and then, you know, connect across the country, and build our own political power, right? Our own power. And that means different things, but, you know, for different people, but like really, we have to really show that we can come together and say, these are things that we want during the COVID recovery. So I do invite everyone to come to blackmuslimcoalition.com. There's either two forms, and the volunteer form, it gives multiple levels. There's not just one. Like, if you're just like, look, I'm spread thin, just join our advisory so that we can reach out. If you got 5 hours a week and can make it to the Sunday meeting, join, because we can use you. Make sure you follow us on social media and help build out this vision, because we're right now, this is like a crisis unlike we've known in any of our time. And we're facing, you know, I mean, when we talk about charged genocide, like, this is a pre-genocidal moment, and this is really serious, but it's also a beautiful moment where we have a special place as Black Muslims in this country to do some amazing things. So let's vision that together.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Margari. Thank you for the work that you're doing with Muslim Arc, what you're doing with the Black Muslim Coalition. I think we put the website up so people can go there and fill out and find ways to get involved. And so thank you again. I want to tell folks that, you know, we're supposed to end, I think, in 3 minutes, but we're not. Because we actually did not start on CP time. So I want to shout us out for that. But we are running a little behind, but we have sort of 2 things coming up that are happening. We have our final performance, and then we have a closing video. So I'm going to introduce our next performer. Let me just get her bio. Well, actually, I know Tammy, so I'll say it. So Tammy McCann is an internationally renowned jazz vocalist. Her voice, she's been cited as the voice of jazz by Chicago Tribune for 4 years in a row. She is just amazing, right? And one of the things that I love about what Tammy does in particular is how she is classically trained in terms of sort of American classical music, but also in terms of how she brings the blues and gospel and like these really Black, deeply rooted Black traditions into her music and how she communicates and how she sings. And so I'm really excited for her performance. And I'm just waiting to see if Tammy is ready to come off here. I think, I see. Oh yeah, all right, there's Tammy. Alhamdulillah. All right, so I'm gonna sign off, and I'm gonna leave the floor to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Suad. Thank you so much. Thank you to Sapelo Square and all of the work that you do uplifting marginalized African-American Muslim communities. Thank you to the Inner City Muslim Action Network for the tireless work that you do in interfaith dialogue. Assalamu alaikum, shalom, namaste, and greetings of peace to all of you. I'm so honored to be here to pay tribute to El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, or our brother Malcom X. When they asked me to join you today, I said to myself, how will I honor this legacy? And I felt it was really important to bring many voices in to this presentation. My piece is called He Was Our Malcolm, and it includes the voices of our ancestors. It includes the voice of poet Margaret Walker. It includes the voice of Malcolm X, and it also includes my original voice. And I hope that this reaches you. I'm on my way to Canaan land. I'm on my way to Canaan land. I'm on my way to Canaan land. I'm on my way, glory, hallelujah. I'm on my way. I had my hard time, but I'm on my way. I had a mighty hard time, but I'm on my way. I had a mighty, but I'm on my way. I'm on my way, glory, hallelujah. I'm on my way. He was our Malcolm. He was black and beautiful, with a crescent moon twinkling in his eye. His hands held the strength of 400 years, his soul the woe of 4 million tears. He was our Malcolm, our avenger for cruelties done in the light of day and those done in secret. He told us no one could give you freedom. Nobody can give you equality or justice. He told us the future belongs to those that are prepared today. Are you prepared? He was our Malcolm. A snow white Muslim headdress around a dead black face. Beautiful were the sandpapering words against our skin. Our blood and water pour from your flowing wounds. When and where will another come to take your holy place? How blessed are we that he fought for more, bled for more, prayed for more than we could have gained alone. He was our Malcolm. I'm falling and I'm rising, but I'm on my way. I'm falling and rising, but I'm on my way. I'm falling and rising, but I'm on my way. I'm on my way. Glory, hallelujah. I'm on my way. I'm on my way to Canaan land. I'm on my way. Canaan land, oh, I'm on my way. Canaan land, I'm on my way. Glory, hallelujah. I'm on my way. Glory, hallelujah. I'm on my way. Glory, hallelujah. On my way. Malcolm had a dream for us. He had a prayer for us, that we would all come together, that we would speak with one voice, protest with one fist. He had a dream for us. Dear Lord above, God Almighty, God of love, please look down and see my people. Lord, dear Lord, oh, God Almighty, God of love, please look down and see my people through. I believe that God would sun and moon up in the sky. I don't mind gray skies, 'cause they're just clouds passing. Lord, He'll give you peace, and He'll ease your troubled mind. Come Sunday, oh, come Sunday, that's the day. I believe that God is now was there and always shall be. With God's blessings, we can make it through eternity. Lord, dear Lord above, God Almighty, God of love, please look down. Oh, please look down Thank you.
That was fantastic. That was brilliant. That was beautiful. And this is why we do what we do, right? This is why we take days like this to remember Malcolm. Amen. And to give thanks for the man and the music and the memory of his legacy. That was brilliant and beautiful. And so now we are going to pivot into some images from Malcolm, of Malcolm, that come from several different archives. And I want to make sure that I shout them out. They come courtesy of Darul Islam Collection, Majid Abdul Karim Archive, Umi's Archive, Aisha Ibrahim, Aida Aliyah Rashid, and Rasul Media. And this is important. His smile, his images give us hope and give us energy and courage. And so this is very beautiful. Are they running? Well, I would be remiss while we wait on that if I didn't shout out my moms right now. You know what I'm saying? Come on, man. Gotta shout out mom. I'm shouting out my mom because even though my dad played the Malcolm X records for me, my mom actually taught me about Malcolm X first. She had a book of Black history books, and she always taught me about Malcolm. She always, to this day, champions the work of Malcolm. And, I just want to thank her for all the years that she taught me Black history when almost nobody did it, like even within the household, you know what I mean? And I still have a framed picture of Malcolm and Martin shaking hands. And, that came after I saw Do the Right Thing. I knew I had to have that. So I had to go to Marcus Books. If you're in the Bay, you had to go to Marcus Books and get that poster. You know what I'm saying? And so it is important to me in my household that we have images of beautiful Black people, beautiful Black things. And Malcolm X will always be that for so many generations. And once again, I'm going to remind you guys to please donate to Sapelo Square. And we thank you for all of you who have.
An unwavering commitment to universal justice. 5 years ago, Sapelo Square was launched on May 19th, the birth date of Malcolm X. We did so because Malcolm X is a Muslim who embodies the highest values of excellence, critical thinking, and integrity alongside an unwavering commitment to universal justice and Black liberation.
Assalamu alaikum. Mr. Moderator, our distinguished guests, brothers and sisters, our friends and our enemies.
When I think about Malcolm X, I think back to grabbing his autobiography at the age of 12 and reading it and being captivated most of all by his sincerity. This was a person who, for me, represented the transformational power of Islam, and he represented what it meant to have an unyielding pursuit of the truth. I was inspired by his example. He was the singular, most influential person in my decision to embrace Islam. I was able to honor his memory by putting his name in the name of my son, who's named Najashi Malcolm Evans.
To me, Malcolm X is a great example of what a father, a companion, and a leader should be.
When looking back on Malcolm X's speeches, I am reminded of great leadership and wisdom. He is a great reminder of how much it is important for African Americans to support each other in positive, progressive movements. His life is a constant reminder of growth, evolution, and transformation. He truly cared for his people, and it's only a reminder of how great leadership carries on.
Malcolm had the three major characteristics of a hero. First, his courage. Second, his honesty. Third, his sense of humor. It is because of these three hero traits, and that he happened to be the father of only daughters, that I am certain he would have become an Islamic feminist. Just as he stood against white supremacy and racism for the dignity and well-being of all, so do I think he would have stood against systemic patriarchy. We miss you, Brother Malcolm.
Malcolm is a personification of resilience, humility, and love. His selfless sacrifice and willingness to face overt injustice with total fearlessness and still carry a smile brighter than the sun was proof that this man's mission was fueled by the Most High. Tall and strong as an oak tree, beautiful and precious as a long-stem rose, standing in Qiyam, Malcolm X, El Hajj Malik Shabazz.
I pray that God will bless you in everything that you do. I pray that you will grow intellectually so that you can understand the problems of the world and where you fit into in that world picture. And I pray that all the fear that has ever been in your heart will be taken out.
That was fantastic. That was fantastic.
That was beautiful. Part of doing this video was to center the past, but also to imagine the future, right? So we have work from photographers, but we have like family photos. We've been here, and we've been here for a minute, and we wanted to show the beauty of Black Muslims in the US and uplift that narrative. But also as a reminder to ourselves, I think it's very difficult and challenging even to like Google, right? Like images of Black Muslims, like they're the same photos repeatedly. And so to kind of go into these personal archives and create this imagery, I think is a gift and it's a treasure. And inshallah, it's a motivation for folks to hold on to those photos, to document their stories, to document the pioneers in their life. And to hold those things closely and to share them. This is how we keep this culture alive. This is how we keep our stories alive. And this is how we play it forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very well said.
So I think we're going to close out. Do you have any closing words before I jump in?
I just want to thank you for being my co-host at this event. You've been graceful and wise and fantastic as I've been fumbling over here. And I appreciate, just doing this with you. And I'm grateful to everybody at Sapelo Square to have this moment to honor Malcolm because his life changed mine forever.
It's been great co-hosting with you. And it's been wonderful partnering with Iman to amplify the voices, creativity, and power of Black Muslim artists. And we want to lift up their upcoming annual community iftar, which will be live as we are all inside. So you ain't got nothing to do, so you should be able to join. So, please support their efforts and look out for that. So in closing, I just want to say that Sapelo's work centers Black Muslims. because we are Black and Muslim, full stop, period, no confusion. And because we are Black and Muslim, we are concerned about all things that impact Black people. We do this work utilizing a do for self model that's been beautifully embodied by those who worked and labored before us and the pioneers that still live among us. The seeds have been planted. All we need to do is the work, and all we need is Allah's mercy and blessing. Thank you so much for joining us. Please continue to support Sapelo. Again, we are an all volunteer squad, and we are doing this for the love of community, all things Black and Muslim, and the importance of shaping and documenting our own narratives. There's no one better to speak for us but us. So look out for more events from Sapelo under the theme, Black Legacies, Black Futures. We have been here and we will be standing tall in the future. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.